Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle from WeAreSC.com. We're back at you again with more Trojan information and maybe a little bit of arguing. Who knows? I think there's a chance. Few things to cover today. We have the usual crew: Eric McKinney, Greg Katz, Mark Culkin, and your humble host, Chris Arledge. We have some recruiting stuff to talk about. Seems like every week we have recruiting stuff to talk about, and it's almost always good news these days. We're going to talk about position groups again. We'll even talk about a little bit of basketball, which is a little bit unusual for us. And we've got a couple of pop quiz questions again, like last week. So I think that's it, guys. Let's get started with where we stand currently in recruiting. There's at least one commitment that we got, and there are all kinds of rumors swirling around about blue chips who are ready to jump on the train. Eric, you're our guru when it comes to recruiting. Why don't you tell us what's going on? What do we need to know?
You guys always want to go. I always feel like Mark wants to jump in and go
Yeah, well, I'm
recruiting
not
ahead of me.
worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm just in your presence.
I, so so they picked up a look. We're gonna say local. When USC is recruiting well, local means the entire state of California. Northern California, I'm gonna go into Las Vegas is local. The best kid in Utah needs to be local. The best kid in Arizona. That's local. I know it's not technically, but we're gonna say a local offensive lineman in John Fafita from Northern California and a big
There's a little
big
guy. There's a little guy.
6'6", 330. They are USC on the offensive line right now is bringing in the gigantic marble rectangular chunks that they are going to chisel and figure out kind of what we want to turn this thing into. But they are bringing in size and size and size at certain spots. And so he's a guy where again a three-star guy, not a nationally ranked guy. I think he's around 900, 1,000, something like that in the rankings. Two of those guys. Two of those guys in every class. You can't have six of them, right? That 2020 group where it was just, oh, let's bring in a bunch of guys, and you had one in Jonah Monheim that turned out to be anything. You can't do that. Six, seven, eight of those guys. But give me two. Give me two in every class. You need a Cody Green. You need a 4-star. You need 5 stars. You need those types of athletes that are going to be ranked highly. But if you're gonna bring in 6, 7 offensive linemen, the number that they are kind of targeting in this class, yeah, he's a guy that you need. And now you're starting to hear more and more about, 5-star tight end Mark Bowman, 4-star wide receiver Trent Mosley in Southern California, 4-star running back Deshaun Rideau in Southern California at Oaks Christian, those types of guys leaning, it's always fluid. You can commit, decommit, whatever you want. But it's the first time in a while where you just hear over and over and over, boy, it feels like they're gonna get just about everybody that they say we want to go hard after that guy. And the changes in the resources that they have to do it, the changes in the number of people that they have attacking all of that, and just the constant drumbeat of connection, contact, get these kids on campus. And there is this tangible groundswell in this 2026 class where outside of a 4-win season, 6-win season, I mean it's good, right? You still have this. There's still that sort of leap across that you need to make this year on the field. You got to win. But boy, is it set up right now. They're doing the work. They're doing the spring work right now to build this class, number one class in the country right now, and just a ton of momentum. Ton of momentum. You can't just win the offseason. Got to win the season too. But right now they're doing everything they need to do.
When the old scholarship limits went away, it makes it much easier to pick up a 6'6", 350-pound offensive lineman that you think may turn into a road grader in the middle, right? Now there's no reason not to take that guy. If that's number 30 in your class, you take him. And if it turns out that his feet are too slow or he can't lose the weight he needs to lose, then he'll find his way somewhere else. But these days, you absolutely take that guy. But they're also, you mentioned one, Cody Green. USC's in on some big-time offensive line prospects. Mark, what are you hearing when it comes to the O-line? Who are the guys that we're looking at? And I'm not suggesting you make predictions, but who are the guys that we should be on the lookout because there's a possibility that they may want to become Trojans soon?
Well, Eric mentioned the state of Utah being, East LA, East LA. So Easton Tafa is a name that keeps popping up on everybody's radar. It feels like he's getting ready to pull that ripcord and to commit to USC. I don't know why Eric is afraid of water. He didn't want to claim Hawaii as part of California, but I think it's another state that's part of the local community, especially when it comes to the Polynesian community. Malachi Lee is another name that USC seems to be in the lead for. And I know he's not an offensive lineman, but since we're talking about the state of Hawaii and he's from the state of California, I think that USC is kind of surging with Talanoa Ely as well at linebacker. So you start incorporating all these players in California, which that's what we're really talking about right now. So you've got the offensive lineman that I mentioned, Malachi Lee, Eason Tafa. Eric dropped the name Cody Green. We'll see how interested he really is in USC. We know he has a visit scheduled. Make a couple unofficial visits, and then I'll feel really good about that.
And a pretty good quote that I saw today talking about how USC is recruiting California and how it'd be exciting to be a part of what they're building. I mean, that was a better quote than I expected to see from him.
Absolutely. And I think some of that Oregon shine is starting to wear off. Eric said USC has the #1 recruiting class. He's absolutely correct. USC has the consensus #1 recruiting class. You go across On3, 247, and Rivals, USC's #1. We really don't care about ESPN because they don't know what they're doing. But one of the things that helped USC leapfrog was Oregon lost another commit. So USC took their quarterback, Jonas Williams. There's a good chance they're going to take is it Mulitalo? I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, who just recently decommitted. He was on Oregon's board as a defensive lineman. Bott said he wants to play offensive line. So we'll see, how involved USC gets there. But again, we're talking about California kids staying home and giving USC a really good look.
Look, let's be clear about something. Even when USC was down and Oregon was at their best, USC pretty consistently out-recruited Oregon. Oregon would win some battles, right? They'd pull a D'Anthony Thomas out. They would win some battles. But so long as there was an even playing field, USC pretty consistently beat Oregon because most of the players are closer to USC than they are Oregon. And most of those players either watched Reggie and Matt Leinart or have dads and high school coaches that can tell them that one of those programs is a blue blood that's won a bunch of Heismans and national championships and Rose Bowls, and one has uniforms. So it wasn't until recent years when Oregon started cleaning USC's clock. And let's be clear about why that was. USC was not offering the sort of money that Oregon and Ohio State and some other programs were. I don't know what their current budget is, but it ain't the same budget they had 2 years ago. That's pretty clear. And when you listen to Chad Bowden talk, he's talking about USC maybe being the most aggressive program in the country right now when it comes to NIL. What he's suggesting is that USC is not being dramatically outspent, and maybe USC's in a position to compete with the big spenders. I know we're going to have a lot of people say, you guys were talking last year, we had the defensive line commits from Georgia, USC recruiting was ranked highly, then you lose those guys, you lose the Florida linebacker, you lose all these people, it's going to happen again. I don't know that it's going to happen again. If USC fell apart on the field this coming season, who knows? I'll concede that. I don't think that's going to happen, but if that happened, you're going to lose some momentum. But USC's in a different position because the class is being built around California kids. That's a huge difference in building a class around Georgia kids. And USC is not in the same position it was before, where people can come in and offer a check that's 2 or 3 times bigger and steal guys away. So if that's what you're thinking, there's going to be a repeat of last year. I don't think so. I'm not saying USC is going to have the number 1 class. What I am saying is that USC has a shot at a number 1 class or a number 3 class or a number 5 class. And the feel right now is more the feel from the Pete Carroll, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian days when USC was an elite recruiting program, right? Well, that's what it feels like. You have that level of player and that many of them that are very interested in USC, and they're going to get a bunch of those guys to sign. Whether they'll all show up, I don't know. Greg, any thoughts on the current state of recruiting?
Well, I'm very encouraged by it. And I've sat and said to myself, what is the difference between the last, which you've mentioned, and where we are today? And my first thought is it's a group effort. I think Lincoln Riley still is, he's there. He's the head coach. You know, say what you want at this point in time. But that being said, I think these assistant coaches are really getting after it. And you know what? It makes you wonder if they're really getting after it, what were the previous assistant coaches doing? Now, if you look at some of the comments that are made by players, and I know that you know players say comments and you go, yeah, you say that to everybody, but a lot of them are saying we want to get SC back to national championship, or I remember Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart. I hear about them all the time. They are looking forward. I don't think, in my opinion, while it's important that SC has a good winning record, I don't know whether that is as important as these players thinking they're going to be the ones that change it. They're the ones that are going to turn it around. And they're looking at, well, who are they going to compete against? I don't think they really care. You know, recruiting is a game of momentum. Right now, SC's got really, really strong momentum. And what's really good to me is that so much emphasis on the momentum is coming about local players. Take what Eric said about some of the, you know, what's the lineman in Utah and a couple of others. But basically, it's California. And there's a lot of emphasis that California kids know each other from a lot of things. This idea that in the old days, you know, they didn't know what the other one was doing. The coaches were all cloak and dagger. You know, it was like the espionage. But now they know each other, and then they bond each other when they're calling and all that stuff. I feel right now that they're in good shape, really good shape, because I think the quarterback of Jonas Williams kind of sealed it away from Oregon, took some of the glitter off of Oregon. I'm not saying Oregon won't find a great quarterback or a good quarterback, but players see those things, and then they're all going, "Oh, look, SC's got the number 1 recruiting class," and then they look harder. And I think that these coaches, especially on the defensive side, are really getting after it. And I think they're going to really have an outstanding recruiting class. It really, I mean, it's going to take something. I'm sure it's possible, gargantuan, to cut the enthusiasm and the feeling that we can make it happen. We can be good about it. So my hope is that even though there's no spring game, it doesn't matter when it comes to recruiting. The game itself is irrelevant to the players. Maybe they want to see who they're going to compete against. I don't know. But I would say that in the fall, these players will have their own seasons. They'll be looking at SC. They'll be coming down to SC. Since they are California kids, you know, it's looking good there. They'll be able to make probably more games. There'll be more players and the scholarship limit. I think that they're really going. And I tell you, Bowden and his group of recruits, they know, they've been there. Okay. They know what it's like to have a number 1 or number 2 or number 5 recruiting class. And my feeling is at this point, I'm highly encouraged. I was not encouraged in the past. I did not like what I was seeing in terms of the assistant coaches and the recruiting. And, you know, and part of it, I have to say this, though, it goes back to the head coach. The head coach decides, you know, what kind of program he wants, where he wants to recruit. And somebody has gotten into Lincoln Riley, to be quite honest with you, because going into the 4th year, he understands I better start recruiting kids from California. This has become a major issue. And he's actually being re-recruited, so to speak, in a mindset to say, hey, maybe we can do it. And I think those assistant coaches right now, they're not going to let him slide. These guys have a lot of enthusiasm to make it happen.
Well, there are a lot of good recruiters on this staff, both the coaches and the front office guys, Bowden and the guys that he brought in. A lot of good recruiters. It's also a much better coaching staff than what USC's had in the past, and the NIL is much better, and this California class is better. I mean, one of the reasons why Lincoln Riley feels comfortable recruiting California as hard as he is right now is because this is, I mean, as Chad Bowden put it, the best recruiting class in California in 20 years. So this is where the guys are this year. So look, it's pretty exciting. We're going to have a lot of good news over the coming days, probably, and certainly over the coming months. When you get into June and you're bringing all these guys in, USC is going to fill up their class with a bunch of really highly regarded guys. Then they have to hold on to them, and we'll see what happens with that. Okay, let's talk about the current team for a second. We started last week. We're going to go through the position groups. I asked, what is our best position group? And Mark was the guy that got to go first. He said defensive line. We talked about defensive line last week. We're going to do two position groups this week. Eric and Greg can both pick one, and so this is number 2 and number 3 on the list of our best position groups. Greg, why don't you go ahead and go with yours first? Who are we talking about?
Well, I don't know. You know what? I know what the question is. And the fact of the matter is, so much of SC's success is going to be around quarterback. And so I see it as a really strong position. I'm not saying that returning quarterback Jaden Mayava is going to lose his job, but I think many people would say, I hope he gets the job done, but he needs to have someone really push him because, you know, my personal.
Let's talk about Mayava for a second.
Okay, let's talk about Mayava.
What did you see last year in Mayava? He obviously started the last 4 games. Didn't play a lot before that. We had a little bit of tape from UNLV, of course. What are your thoughts on Mayava? Let's do the circle, and then we'll talk about the other guys we have in that room.
Well, first of all, to remember Mayava, he had 11 touchdown passes. Okay. He also was able to rush a little bit. My question is, from a leadership standpoint, is he a leadership? Does he get in the, well, there's no really huddle anymore, but can he get to the point where he is a leader, period, in a lot of things? I don't know if that's true. I see, you know, I know that Lincoln Riley says, oh, I'm really excited, I like him, but that's what he should do. Yeah, he's got to make the guy feel like he's, you know, he's the second coming of Matt Leinart. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not totally sold on him. Not because I think he's a bad kid or anything like that, but I don't know. I saw things and mistakes, and I know we could all say, well, he's a young quarterback. He's going to be, a junior in there. And my feeling is, okay, he was the Mountain West MVP as a freshman, person, not the MVP, but right there with honors and stuff. But you know what? This was a big transition to go from where he came out of to be in the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten now has got back-to-back national champions, and that's really not going to hurt those teams. They're recruiting, and Penn State is on fire, basically. So, this is really important for SC to be led at quarterback. And I think that just the fact of where they are and what their needs at quarterback. Now, we also have the 5-star.
Let's talk about Longstreet after we talk about Mayava. I want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Sure.
Mark, thoughts on Jaden Mayava? Is this the guy? What should we expect from him?
So I actually touched on this in my Sunday article. Jaden has the intangibles. He has everything you want, to be successful. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's big. He's strong. We know he has the ability to use his legs. We know he has the arm to throw the ball from the West Coast to the East Coast. That's not his issue. To what Greg was alluding to, can Jaden cut down on the mental mistakes going forward year 2? Does he have a better command of the playbook? In his 4 games that he started, I mean, the stats bear it out. 1,100, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's shown he can do it. Lincoln Riley has mentioned in the past that he wants his starting quarterback to be that team captain type of player, somebody who is more extroverted as opposed to introverted. And I think that's where Jaden is right now. That's that crossroad he's at. Can he be a more vocal leader? Doing it on the field, leading by example, everybody has their own style. But is he going to be the guy, when things aren't going as well as they could be, who's going to walk up to each player on the sideline, get in their face, and say, hey, get behind me, we'll make sure we get this done, that type of thing? Is he motivating the guys in the locker room? Is he taking control at practice? Is he the alpha? And that's what I want to see from Jaden. Hoping to see in the spring. I really don't want to wait till the fall to find out that, yeah, you know what? He's ready to be the guy.
Well, Miller Moss was that guy in terms of leadership, and he threw a bunch of picks, and now he's gone. Well, okay, Eric, Jaden Maiava. Is he the guy? Should we feel good about Maiava, or should we be worried about Maiava?
Both. I don't think we have an answer yet, which is not where you want to be if you think you can win a national championship in college football, right? You want quarterback, good. Here we go. We got our guy. But there aren't a ton of certainties really anywhere at that position. Penn State got some good play from Drew Aller. I don't know if they're saying, yeah, he's going to win us the Heisman Trophy and national championship this year. With Jaden, I think his leadership style is something that the team got used to, and I think he's sort of growing into taking the next step. Like Mark said, he is for sure a last guy off the field kind of guy. I mean, the work he puts in, all of that stuff, people see that, people know that. The ups and downs, that's where it has to come together. It can't up and down, up and down, up and down. It's gotta be more even killed. And there were plays last year. There were some throws that were unbelievable. There were some throws, if you just kind of clip up the interceptions, what do we do? What are some of those? And then there were some snaps where it felt like it got a little frantic in the backfield and he's throwing it backwards and that sort of stuff. It's one of those, like, can we take a breath? Can we calm down? Can you come into this year? I've been here, I've done that, I'm calm, I'm good to go. Can he get there? I think so. I don't know so. And so I think that's where we are at quarterback right now. Again, you take all the pieces and you go, we can put something together here. We can win with this. I think there's a confidence, and you just want it to be, okay, I've seen it. Because he saw some good defenses at the end of the year. That was not Texas A&M's #1 unit at all. That Notre Dame defense was good. They had a ton to play for. He carved them up for big chunks of that game. So you've seen him do it. It just has to be more consistent. And again, flip it. Miller Moss, same thing. We were having the same conversation, right? It just the ups and downs. He made some unbelievable throws. He made some throws where it's just, you cannot do that. You cannot make that throw in that situation. It can go up to the coaching decisions. It can go to the offensive line conversation. You can do any of that stuff. You want to play quarterback at this level. You get a lot of the credit, a lot of the blame. That's how it goes. And can he do it? I think so. And I'd probably lean 51 like to that side at this point. But there's not a ton to say, yeah, he's going to deliver game in, game out, and there aren't going to be any sort of big valleys in his play.
Yeah. Maiava had a really nice game against the Irish, with the exception of the picks at the end, which I'll talk about in a second. But he did things to that Notre Dame defense that other really good teams could not do. If you watch the playoff, you saw Notre Dame's defense was legit. And going into the USC game, I thought, well, you know, they haven't played a lot of good football teams, and they hadn't. But they played a lot of good football teams afterwards, and you look at the defense, and they were a problem. USC went and moved the ball up and down the field all day against the Irish. And Jaden Maia was a big part of that. But the problem USC had last year, both when Maia was starting and before, is that the quarterbacks would occasionally, in the worst possible time, make horrific decisions. You cannot lose games at that position because you throw a pick deep in the fourth quarter. You can't do it. USC did it over and over and over again last year. I thought that Maia would use his legs more than he did. He is a better athlete than Miller Moss was. He's not Caleb Williams as an athlete, but he is a better athlete. He didn't want to run. And I think that's a problem. I think he has to use his legs more than he did. But really what he has to do is he has to make better decisions. And that sounds simple. It's not. This is probably the most important thing for a quarterback, is making good decisions. You see in the NFL, you've got guys that, I mean, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and guys like that were playing long after a lot of their physical skills had gone away, because they read the defense, almost always made the right decision and threw to the right guy. And if you do that at quarterback, you're going to be all right. Is Jaden Maia going to do that? I don't know. He didn't get the first team reps for most of the year last year. He had played some football at UNLV, but he hasn't played a ton. This is a guy who may very well grow into it. But I don't know that you can project that a guy is going to become a great decision maker. I don't know. Lincoln Riley may know, but I don't know that we can trust what he's saying, because of course he's going to talk up Jaden Maia. He has to.
You're bringing up a point, Chris, that I would add to at the end of mine. So he's played plenty of football. He started at UNLV for the entire season. You only have a finite amount of time in college to begin with. So, you know, trying to split that hair, well, he's now going into his third year of college, right? He has the experience. He knows what it means to play quarterback at this level. Is there a different amount of pressure, though, when you're playing quarterback at USC, and then you add to that, you have a quarterback guru as your head coach who's had success whenever he touches a quarterback? Does that put some added pressure on, you know what, I need to make sure I'm thinking what Lincoln's thinking, and maybe they're not on the same wavelength?
Does it add pressure to follow Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and Caleb Williams?
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody look, when you play for Lincoln Riley, you have expectations that you're going to be a superstar because you have the top quarterback coach coaching you, and everybody else who played for him had been a superstar. That is an immense amount of pressure. It's also the case that Lincoln Riley took guys off the scrap heap in some cases. Nobody was interested in Baker Mayfield. Jalen Hurts got beat out at his prior school. Lincoln Riley does have the ability to do magic with quarterbacks. He does. I mean, those guys were talented, but it's not like the whole world was saying, if I can just get Baker Mayfield to transfer in, I'll be set. So it wouldn't surprise me if Lincoln Riley works wonders with Jaden Maia. He has the entire offseason to do it. And so do I think Jaden Maia is going to put up big offensive numbers? I do. He's going to throw for a lot of yards, and he's going to throw for a lot of touchdowns. I already know that. I just don't know if he's going to throw costly picks that'll lose 4 games, because he might do that too. And if you do that, I don't know how much it matters that you threw for 3,800 yards and 38 touchdowns, which he's probably going to do. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on him before we move to the freshman?
I think that he's got a lot of people looking at him now. And, you know, USC is not UNLV, although UNLV had a nice year this year. And the expectations, it's how he deals with it. It's the team that's surrounding him, offensive line, a lot of stuff. I think it's really, like we've already discussed, he's got physical ability, no question about it. But it's really what's between the ears and these. I think the thing that's important to me is when the games get bigger, the really good players get bigger. And the question is when he faces people, especially if SC gets off to a really good start, which we all hope that they do, How does he handle that when the attention of college football starts shrinking in terms of teams that people are looking at? I mean, I think we're all pretty sure that SC is going to be at least 2-0 to start the season, maybe 3-0.
They better be.
They better
we
be.
cancel this show forever if they're not.
Well,
because I'm not going to come here and talk about them if that happens.
Well, if they're not, I can tell you the guy that's going to compete, how great he compete is really kind of fascinating, and that's from Corona Centennial, Hussein Longstreet, because.
So, Greg, I want to ask you.
I wish you would, Chris. Please
I'm
ask
let
me.
you talk, but I have a question for you. USC starts with some easy games.
Yeah.
Houston Longstreet is immensely talented, as we're going to talk about.
Right.
Is he going to get real time in those games so we can see what he has? What do you think?
I would like to think that he might. This is a lot different than saying I think he would. But I think in the best interest of the team. Now, obviously, I'm not coaching them, but I think that we can all say that, you don't want to be caught with somebody who all of a sudden has no experience in games because you let the other guy do everything he needs. So I would be disappointed if he doesn't see at least a half or full fourth quarter in the first two games. And what happens if he's really good? What happens if he's really good? How are you going to judge him against a Clay Helton team? How are you going to judge him in the first game? Well, the bottom line is it doesn't matter really as long as he can get the job done. He doesn't make any big mistakes for a freshman. If things get rocky, I would say playing time might increase because Lincoln Riley knows that, we got to get to a bowl game, which is, not been real easy in some ways. So my feeling is if there's mistakes made by Mayava early and Longstreet has a good spring ball and he does well in practices in the fall and summer, that he's going to get an opportunity. And we're not even talking about if Mayava got injured. I mean, he might be, Paul Bunyan, 6'4", 225. They all can go down. They're all, that really gets down to how well they can protect him.
Yeah. So I expect that Mayava will be the starter. I think everybody does. And I don't expect him to get pulled. That being said, Lincoln Riley has pulled a much more established starter than Jade Mayava in favor of a true freshman in the past, right? Spencer Rattler was not a guy that everybody was saying, well, we'll see. No, Spencer Rattler was a guy people were saying this guy could be a Heisman candidate, and he gets yanked at around game 4 or 5 for Caleb Williams. I don't know if Houston Longstreet is Caleb Williams. I don't think I'd put that on anybody. But, Mark, how talented is this kid?
He's immensely talented. I mean, if you want to use the star system, he's a 5-star. Look, last year, Jaden Mayava got his first action when USC shut out Utah State. He came in, late in the third quarter, I think. And you saw a glimpse of what he's capable of doing against lesser talent. He had that mad scramble in the backfield, ended up running in for a touchdown. That's the ability that everybody was looking for from him. If USC is 1-1 after those first two games,
don't even say that. Just edit that out. Edit it out.
Mark. Hey, wait a minute. Wait.
No, there's a small part.
Go ahead, Mark.
There's a small part of me that wants to see Chris have to react to USC losing to Clay Helton. Trust me, Clay
Helton in a road game. Clay Helton couldn't beat me in a road game. There's no way in the world that happens.
I've already made the case that because of the way the schedule sets up, Husan is already on campus. He's learning the playbook. He's going to be going through spring camp. He's going to be having, that whole experience. Because of the way the schedule sets up, you're opening up at home against, two teams at USC should take behind the woodshed. No question about it. Your third game is on the road at Purdue. If you don't have what you want from Jaden Mayava by then, this is the year you say, you know what? Let's go with the future. There's no reason to try and duplicate what happened last year. I think Miller Moss will turn the corner. That doesn't happen. You have to just say, you know what? We're going all in. So coming out of spring camp, if Lincoln Riley has that sense that, you know what? I might have something here with this true freshman. Is it out of the question because of the way the schedule sets up?
I'd say the bigger thing to me is not who starts the season, it's who ends the season. And to me, the season starts after the Purdue game. Purdue is not a very good football team.
Well, my point, Greg, is Huson's going to get a lot of opportunities in the first 2 games of the year. Because if Jaden is able to get a quarter plus against Utah State, I think Utah State is still better than Georgia Southern and Missouri State. I anticipate Huson getting plenty of action in those first 2 games.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Eric, let's talk about Longstreet. For the guys who haven't seen him play, what's he like? Give me a comp for him, and let's talk about what skill set he has.
So I think that you mentioned Spencer Rattler. I think the arm, and I don't. So the running ability is not Caleb Williams. I don't think the running ability is elite. The movement ability, I think, is he's a physical kid. The arm strength is phenomenal. I can't at the Poly Bowl, right? They did a throw off and 78 yards, something like that. And again, it's what Chris Carlisle always said, like, we'll focus on the bench as soon as they drag a bench out to the 50-yard line and do that. Like that, it's it's a little different, but where the arm strength is he can make throws out to the sideline. He can put balls like that. He can get the ball out of his hand very quickly. I don't know how polished he is in terms of making all the throws, the touch throw, that sort of stuff that you're going to have to be able to do at the next level. So I don't know if he's a get him on the field right now and he can start right now, but he absolutely can play this year. And going back to what you guys talked about, I think you have to play him right now because you cannot go out to Notre Dame, have Jaden Mayava take a helmet to the elbow or something where he's got to come out for a series or whatever, and then go, hey, here we go. You got to go. So I think he needs multiple series early on in those first few games, and I'd hope that he gets, is Purdue going to be a gigantic road environment? No, but it's something. And so you talk about the first 2 home games, but let him go take snaps somewhere else too. I think it also, if you can show, right, one clip, get him a touchdown pass, get him something. Talk about all that leads back to recruiting and sort of enthusiasm for what you have going forward and that sort of stuff. Freshmen playing early always moves the needle in a recruiting class. So I think what he does, look, what Jade Mayava does is going to dictate the success or failure of this season. But what he does is going to be pretty big too, setting up both behind that and also we've seen, I mean, that it was outside of Caleb Williams year after year, going back 6-7 years, USC's needed 2, sometimes 3 quarterbacks to get itself through a season. So yeah, I think playing him early is big, and I think that he has the talent. He has the talent to do it right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's the runner that Caleb Williams is. He's certainly not as thick as Caleb Williams. I mean, one of the things about Caleb Williams is he was like a big halfback when you're trying to tackle him. That's not the case with Longstreet. But I think Longstreet may be as good an athlete as Jackson Dart was, right? I mean, he can make plays with his legs, and he doesn't just have an NFL arm. If you can throw the ball close to 80 yards, you have an elite NFL arm. I don't know what kind of decision maker he's going to be. I don't know that he's as polished as the guy that USC was recruiting last year, who was probably Juju Lewis, who may have been a guy who could step in and play earlier in his career than Longstreet can, is my guess. But I don't think he has the same upside that Longstreet has. Longstreet's upside is way up there. He's a guy that can move, that has an unbelievable cannon for an arm. And so I think that he has a promising future. I hope we see him when it matters in those 3 early games. Get him some series in the first half. There's no reason you can't do that. It doesn't create a quarterback controversy. What it does is puts the guy in the game when the game still matters. It's different playing in the first half of a 7-0 game than in the fourth quarter of a 49-0 game. It's different. And so I would like to see him get some real time. We may need him if there's an injury. We may need him because he may develop faster than we think, and he may be their best option. Okay.
So nobody's giving Uncle Luke, his nephew Sam, a chance.
Well, he ain't playing unless the other guys get hurt. But as a third backup, right, as a number 3 quarterback, he's a pretty good number 3 quarterback. He's a guy who has a lot of experience, and he does have some physical talent. He didn't do in college what people expected him to do. But as a number 3 guy, if you need him to come in and play a few series, you're probably better off with him than just about any team in the country is with their number 3 quarterback, my guess is. So he's probably solid in that. But he's not beating out any of the other guys. I think we know that. Okay, let's talk about the next position group. Eric gets to select this. Eric, what is the third best position group on this team?
So we talked defensive line last week. I wish that we could go offensive line. In a perfect world, eventually we're going to get that, right? We're going to go 1-2, either line of scrimmage. I'm going to go running backs, and it's what I had kicked in last week for potentially the best group. And there's a couple unknowns at the top. You bring in a JUCO kid in Wayman Jordan Jr. who won the JUCO offensive player of the year. And then you bring in Eli Sanders from New Mexico, from before that Iowa State, who just had 1,000-yard rushing season. And honestly, if all you did was tell me you were bringing back the 2 guys from the bowl game plus the freshman, I would have said, sure, let's see how it goes. So Brian Jackson's still there. Marion Peterson is still there. You've got some freshmen coming in. Harry Dalton looks physically ready to go right now. For a position where can you rotate 3 guys? Do you play 2 guys? There's a lot of those questions. We've seen this offense fall in love with one guy and one guy the last few years. So let's say that happens. You got one guy taking, I don't know, 75% of the snaps. You have a lot of options. You have a lot of options right now at running back that can take those snaps, that can play. And I think the combination of talent at the top and depth throughout makes it an interesting position. And I would love to see 2 back sets all year. I would love to see 3. I mean, you could get 3 of these guys on the field based on what they're doing. Now you're cutting into wide receiver snaps and that sort of stuff. And I don't know if we want to do that either, but I think that group is loaded. Obviously, a lot of their effectiveness is going to be on A, how many touches do they get, and B, what does that offensive line look like? But Lincoln Riley's run games, even when he doesn't run it as much as I think almost anybody would want to see the run game working, it works well. Running backs get downfield untouched at an incredible rate in Lincoln Riley's offense compared to the rest of the country. So I think these guys are good. I think they are going to get used this year. You've got this mix of kind of youth and experience, and I think it's a spot that's ready to go.
Okay, so we have 5 guys you mentioned. I think all 5 are likely to be good players, including the true freshman, who I'm pretty excited about. But do you have a great one? Do you have a guy who's as good as your starter from last year? I don't know. Do you have a guy who's as good as either of your 2 starting wide receivers? I don't know. I think you have 5 guys who you can put out there who I think, let's put aside pass protection and other things you worry about with young backs. Let's put that aside. You have 5 guys who you could put back there who will run the football and do a competent job. I believe that. I don't know yet if there's a superstar. Maybe Wayman Jordan is. I don't know. It's hard to tell from his film how fast he is. I don't know if he's a game breaker or if he's a guy who's going to get you 8. Like Woody Marks. Woody Marks was not a guy who's going to go 80. He's a guy who's going to get you 8 when most backs would get you 4. That's what Woody was fantastic at, that and catching the ball. Okay, so
I think Brian Jackson's a guy. I mean, I think he's good. I think
like Brian
he
Jackson a lot.
really flashed as a freshman. I think you factor in what step do you take first year to second year, and I don't know if he's in the top two based on experience, and they clearly went out and got those guys to bring into the offense. But boy, I'd be if I was any Big Ten team, I'd be comfortable with Brian Jackson as my starter going into the year for sure. But
Brian
you're right. And
Jackson
that I think where it mixes is at wide receiver. Yes, give me those top two. I don't know what's below that, and you got to fill a bunch of different spots at a receiver. At running back, shake up the dice, throw them out there, whatever you want to fill one or two spots. I think you're pretty loaded.
Mark Holken, is the starting running back at USC next year better than the starting running back at USC last year?
No, only
Okay.
because we don't. Only because
Is the number 2 back at USC next year better than the number 2 back at USC last year?
well, the number 2 back this year was probably the number 2 back last year. I'm going to assume that Waymond or Eli is going to secure one of those starting running back positions. Which my point is, what I want to make is, I just want to answer the question this way. Unless Lincoln Riley is going to really lean into that running game, and I'm talking about when he's holding a lead in the fourth quarter, why would you not hand the ball off to your best guy for the final 10 minutes of the game when you have a lead? I'm talking about the loss to Minnesota. He had 20 carries, 134 yards, and he didn't touch the ball for the final 10 minutes of the game. So my question is, will USC end spring camp with 6 talented running backs, which no one really separates themselves from each other? You've got the size, you've got guys who can take the distance, but if Lincoln Riley's not going to make that dedication to the run game, start using the tight ends more, will you have 6 running backs at the end of spring camp? That's really
no. I'll tell you right now, the answer is no. Either Brian Jackson or Marion Peterson is going to lead this football team. I really hope Brian Jackson doesn't leave this football team. I really like him. I think Peterson is a good player. I just don't know, looking at this depth chart, I don't know how he gets on the field. He's not leaping over Brian Jackson. I don't think he's leaping over the number 1 JUCO back in the country. I'll tell you what, the number 1 JUCO back doesn't think he's going to, because he wouldn't have signed with USC. And you got to have the lightning option, right? And so I don't think he leaps over the speed back from New Mexico. I don't know how he gets on the field.
Whichever running back shows they can catch the ball best coming out of the backfield, they've got the upper hand. Obviously,
that would certainly help.
Yeah.
Greg Katz.
Yeah.
Greg Katz, I know you're always positive. So give me the positive spin.
That was not very nice and uncalled for. I don't know why I get all the blame for it, but I will tell you one thing.
Running back group. Is this a
I'm not
this a
concerned about the, I tell you, I'm not concerned about the running back group, and I'll tell you why. I think they're probably pretty good. The track record of running backs since Riley's been here has been, pretty good. Maybe could even been better than just pretty good. But it all gets down to, are you going to run the ball to make it effective? You can't sit there and say, I'm going to pass the ball when we should be running the ball. Go with the flow of the game. I do not have a lot of confidence that no matter who they have a tailback or running back or whatever they're going to call it, offset back, if you don't get enough running plays for these guys, it's going to be something that in the end, short run or long run, is going to affect you, because people say you can go there and you could be a great running back, and when they give you the ball, you could do a few really good things, but are you going to get the ball enough times, not for your own individual greatness, but for the team's greatness? And that's really going to be the important factor. I really sense that as much as the recruiting the quarterback or the running backs is really important, I think the recruiting of Lincoln Riley's mind to run the ball, when he literally, you can say you don't agree with me, which is fine. He grew up in a Georgia or Texas Tech situation, right? He had Leach. It is so ingrained into his bloodstream to throw the ball. that yes, even if he's doing well on the ground, can he continue to do it? It doesn't make a difference if he's got Marcus Allen at tailback. Can he adjust his play calling or his philosophy to match the running backs that he has recruited well? And that's a real mystery to me. Although I have to say, I don't know if it's much of a mystery to me until he proves it, till Lincoln Riley proves it. I will say they'll be okay when they run the ball, but will they run it when they should?
I'll make a prediction. USC starting running back will average over 6 yards per carry. USC's backup running back will average 6 yards per carry. And USC will run the ball 17 fewer times per game than any other program that has two backs that average 6 yards per carry. Because that's what happens every year, right? You look at the numbers that USC's backs put up, and you say, why in the world did that guy have 15 carries? Why did he have 15 carries when he was averaging 7.5 yards a pop? And the answer is nobody knows except Lincoln Riley. And he's not telling us. He tells us that he believes in the running game, that the running game is important. He talks all the right talk. But for crying out loud, the guy does not run the ball enough. He does not. He's recruiting 350-pound linemen. He's got battering rams like Brian Jackson on his team. Run the football and take away the defense's will. Please try that this year, Lincoln Riley. Can you do that? You're coaching at USC. Tailback you. Look over there in the peristyle corner at the names of the guys who have run the ball at this school, and then explain to me why you're not running the ball when your guys are averaging 7 or 8 yards a carry. Please explain that. Please tell me why you're throwing interceptions on 3rd and 2 when your back averages 8 yards a carry in the going into the fourth quarter. Please explain that to me, or just change what you do. And I'm getting worked up because most USC fans get worked up about this. It is unbelievable to me how effective Lincoln Riley's offense is at running the ball and how little Lincoln Riley wants to run the football.
Statistically, though, when you look at the pass attempts to running attempts, they're comparable. This comes down to Clay Helton's favorite thing, situational awareness. And that's why I brought up the Minnesota game. When you're clicking off 8 yards, 6 yards a pop, you have to put the ball in that guy's hand at least once, twice in the final 10 minutes of the game. Go kick a field goal. Don't put your quarterback in the position where he could make a mistake.
And that's why this position, although you could say by numbers and by name, is not, let's say, the strongest like defensive tackle. That's why, in my opinion, it's just as important as any of them, because at some point there is going to be competition between the two of them. And you have to wonder about Jonas Williams, who, left Oregon and said, I'm coming to USC. How does that affect them in the long run? Probably not, because when you're a quarterback, in Lincoln Riley's offense, you can run the ball, you can pass the ball. You probably say, just based on what you've seen, a lot of the guys who started off or transferred in, they got their opportunity, their shot, and they either did it or they were unable to do it. But I think it's going to be a really interesting competition at some point in the spring, even though Mayava will start, no doubt in my mind. But I think if things don't go right, there's going to be some real competition with Longstreet. It's inevitable.
USC had 366 rushing attempts last year. They had 534 passing attempts. Eric, you had a stat, you probably don't remember off the top of your head, but you had this fantastic stat.
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
The not remembering part. The not remembering part, not the stat part.
Oh, I was going to say, I think you just found it on the internet. I don't think you actually compiled the numbers, but there was, you had a number in one of your articles showing how successful USC was running the ball and how little they ran it compared to other teams that have that much success. When you're running the ball as well as USC does, you shouldn't be 534 to 366 in attempts. That's just not okay.
It's also the difference between Lincoln, the strategy, right? Hey, this is an advantageous run look for us right now. We're going to run at that and we're going to do it well. Sometimes it's got to be the other way too. Look, we're going to run it because we can run it. Yeah, they've got 7 and an eighth creeping in or whatever. We can still run it on that. And I don't know if he's had, you can't do it every time because there's defenses that can play defense. You're going to run into those in the Big Ten. But there's also sometimes where, yeah, you can win a tough game by doing that, by being that kind of team. And if it's not not having a belief in the offensive line to be able to get that done or whatever it is, and it's all, you hope that that's coming along. You build the offensive line and then you get to that point and then you can do that. At Oklahoma, I think he sometimes had those offensive lines. Yeah, we're going to put 9 there. We'll run it. And I don't know if that's been the case at USC.
Greg, does anything take the soul out of a football team more than having the other team just run it at you over and over and over again and not be able to stop it? There's nothing worse for a football team than that, is there?
No, I mean we've seen it not just at SC, where their tradition and their I mean when you have all those Heisman Trophy winners, that pretty much speaks for itself. But you have to, again, it goes back to like John McKay. I know there was going, okay, here we go again. John Robinson, Pete Carroll went to the running game when things didn't always go well. So the really, really good coaches, they understand what it is. I don't think that given his choice that Lincoln Riley wants to run the ball. That's not how he grew up. That's not what he's known for. He's in a position where if he doesn't change, he's going to be changed. I don't care what they say. Every year he coaches is 1 year less on his contract. I know he's got a massive contract, but I really have a lot of faith in Jen Cohen, his athletic director, really by what she did and pushed and took out the money for guys like, Bowden. She understands recruiting. She's had her own son recruited, and she understands California. She gets it. And I think Lincoln Riley got too caught up with Georgia. Not that they shouldn't recruit Georgia, don't get me wrong, because they've really gotten some good players, throughout SC's history for the most part of the modern era. But I'll tell you what, you have to start in California and you have to make it happen. And if he does, he's gonna find out that he's in really good shape, depending on how he wants to run the football team.
Yeah, look, Lincoln Riley's not going anywhere because he's going to win enough games this year and have a good enough recruiting class that he's going to make it to the year after that, especially with that big contract. And the way USC is now set up to recruit, he's going to have a lot of good football players on the roster. He's going to win enough. That's not going to happen. But I do wonder whether Lincoln Riley is going to be willing, when there are 6, 7 guys in the box and you're having success, whether he's going to be willing to smash it at you over and over again. We haven't seen it yet, but we'll see. Maybe he's changed in other areas. We'll see if he changes in that one. Okay, guys, a couple more topics, and we're going to do them quick. We're going to do something we almost never do. We're going to talk about women's college basketball. Is this USC basketball team going to win the NCAA tournament? You have 15 seconds to give your answer and your explanation, and that's it. I'll cut you off. Who's going first? Mark,
you are because we want to see if you're going to cut yourself off.
No, I'm not going to cut myself off. I'm going to talk.
I didn't think so.
Mark Holkin, are they going to win it all?
No.
You still have 12 seconds. Is that all you want to say?
I forced myself to watch the Big Ten championship game, USC versus UCLA, and Juju Watkins is amazing. She's one of one. She is a talent. I don't know if she has enough supporting. They need too many things to go right to go all the way. I don't have the confidence in this team to do it.
Mark Holkin's not a believer. That's 15 seconds. Eric McKinney, are they going to win it all?
No, I'm with Mark. I think they go farther last year. I think it's a Final Four potential championship game team, but I'm with Mark. If those freshmen were another year, right? If they were sophomores, then I like it more. The collection of parts around Juju, but I think they're close. I don't know if they get all the way this year though.
Greg Katz, we've got 2 non-believers. Are you also a non-believer?
I don't consider it a non-believer. I consider it realistic. I don't give me the smirk like the judge just said,
I'm
you know,
just disappointed.
overruled.
I'm just disappointed, Greg. Go ahead. You got 12 more seconds. Don't waste it on me.
No, I have
Back
10 seconds. You're filibustering. I think they could make the regionals, but a lot of it depends on Watkins. We saw in the UCLA game. I mean, I watched the whole thing. Then in the fourth quarter, uh, it looked like it was getting to them, the pressure of beating, and they have one basket in the fourth quarter of that. And I'll tell you what, I have participated in the NCAA basketball tournament doing public address in the first and second rounds of it. And it's all, to me, what I learned was just how much pressure there is in the second half of a game. And when I think of SC, I go, can they overcome what happened in the fourth quarter against UCLA? Again, it was at Pauley Pavilion. I understand that. But the bottom line is they could do it if Watkins doesn't have a bad game. I think she has to score 30 points.
You're at 45 seconds. I'm cutting you off. That's it. All right, now
I
listen.
wanted to get
Here's
to a
the
minute,
answer.
Mark.
Here's the answer. They are going to win it all.
No, they're
They
not.
curb stomped UCLA, a fellow #1 seed, 2 out of 3 times. They're a better team than Texas. I don't know if they're better than South Carolina, but Juju Watkins will pull out some magic and win it all. That's what's going to happen. You guys are embarrassing me now. I thought I'd get better response from you. I mean, we almost never talk about women's college basketball. Nobody's going to hold you accountable for what you say. Just say yes. Okay, pop quiz. We're into with pop quiz. You ready? Here we go. Question number 1. USC football's best ever team leader. Greg Katz, you're our historian. You go first. Who is it?
A lot of guys, but the one that sticks out and touches all the bases. He's a Hall of Famer. Is Ronnie Lott. I thought Ronnie Lott had it all, and there was never any doubt. He was tremendously disciplined, and I know Ronnie Lott a little bit when he was in high school, and I can't see anybody that's been better.
Ronnie Lott is almost always the right answer at any question I ask. Thank you very much, Mark Holkin. Who's USC's best ever team leader?
Because Ronnie was already taken off the board. I'm going to go with Bernard Riley. I am going to forever remember his quote when he was asked about voluntary workouts during the off season, and he told the reporter, "You either volunteer or I'm going to kick your ass." That's the type of leader I want in my locker room.
Did he kick the reporter's ass? That sounds like a terrible thing to do.
was
Okay, Eric McKinney. Who is it? Who's the best ever USC team leader?
Well, it's Ronnie Lott, but I'm going to go different because I feel like you yell at me more for picking the same thing.
Don't be intimidated by me. Just give your answer.
I'm gonna say Matt Barkley, and specifically because that kid had to stand up there just after his freshman year and talk about sanctions and try to drag that team through whatever Lane Kiffin was doing as head coach at USC at that time. And yeah, things fell apart in 2012, but that 2011 season was great. I mean, was a fun season, and that was a tough thing for him to do at that point. I think hold that together, stand up there, be the face of the program at that point. So I give him a lot of credit for everything sort of he did during his college career.
Solid answer. All solid answers. The correct answer is Rodney Peete, the undisputed leader of those football teams he was on, in a way that Matt Leinart was not, even though Matt Leinart has all of the hardware and the rest of it. And by the way, I love Rodney. I don't know him personally, but I love him. Okay, guys, last pop quiz question, and then we're signing off. This is it. Here we go. Who's the guy who could and should have been a legend, but just couldn't quite get there? Mark Holkin, go.
My dog ate my homework on this question. I know this is a player that you like to appreciate, R.J. Soward. He had the ability to be that dude, that guy. You saw what he did in his true freshman year, and then for whatever reason, he thought drinking and cigarettes were the way to go.
Solid answer. Eric McKinney, who is it?
But I'm not going to try to go somewhere else. He was absolutely the first guy I thought of. It's hard. Like the 96 USC UCLA game. I'm not going to tell anybody to go back and watch the whole thing. But if you can find,
don't watch it, please.
If you can find clips of him on there, there's times where you go back and you look at old games, and I feel horrible calling that an old game. Like 96 is not old, but you go back to other sort of eras of college football and it's like, yeah, okay, that's cute. I don't think that's working now. You watch him in that specific game, I mean, that's what the best players now look like. It is phenomenal. Catching the short passes and just gone. To think that it ended with a first round pick. It's not like he, was never nothing, but he's not in that conversation of best all time USC wide receivers, and he should be, could have been.
R.J. Soward was Jamison Williams, and he did not have a Jamison Williams type career. That's who he was. Greg Katz, you have an answer other than R.J. Soward? I hope so.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
For you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with somebody that probably a lot of people don't remember because of the age and what it is, but a guy who was really a great player. He wasn't fancy. He did everything he was told. His name was Dwayne Bickett. And Dwayne Bickett was a linebacker. I actually knew Bickett when he played basketball. He was a sensational athlete, smart as all get out, played really hard, played on good teams. Okay. But there was other players that were getting all the quote publicity. But in terms of a guy that really should have been even greater, but was probably overlooked because of the other talent on the team. But I have not seen a player any better than him at linebacker. He would be my choice.
Dwayne Bickett and Jack Del Rio, mid-1980s. That was quite an outside linebacking core. Okay, good answer. The real answer for everybody is Todd Marinovich. Maybe the most decorated high school quarterback USC's ever recruited. Came in as a redshirt freshman, takes USC to the Rose Bowl, wins the Rose Bowl, went to South Bend and put up about 340 yards in a very close loss at a time when Notre Dame was really good, but did not have the personal life or discipline to hold it together, and his career fell apart. That's a guy who should have been he should have been a USC legend rather than more of a USC footnote, which I think is what he became. Okay, guys, anything we want to say before we sign off?
When did spring practice really start?
Last full week in March, they're gonna get going.
There you go.
The idea why in the past they'd gotten started, everybody breaks for spring break. They try to get them back, try to get momentum going again. This year, just kicking it all the way over spring break and then going one shot all the way through.
The team is supposed to be back on campus by March 25th. That's their deadline. I would assume the next day or the day after will be your first day of practice.
All right. Hey, are we having any specials, WeAreSC? Anything going on?
$1 for your first week. $1 for your first week. Come check it out.
Come on.
Don't wait for the start of spring ball. Get here now. And join us through spring break. Whenever your spring break is, go ahead, get here now. $1 for that week.
The board is full of recruiting information right now that you're going to want to hear. So get on there. Come on, hurry up. Mark, what do you want to say?
You echoed my sentence. Eric and Scott are putting up so much recruiting information right now. It's ridiculous.
All kinds of stuff. It's great. Get on there. $1. Come on, people. Again, show up at my door. I'll give you the buck. Okay, that's it. I think we're done. Thank you for joining, everybody. We'll see you next week. Until then, fight on.